Welcome back, dear listeners, to another episode of Tales Plus, where every story is a journey, and every twist leaves you wanting more. When we left off, King Shahryar's wrath had left his kingdom in ruins, with no women left to bear the weight of his dark vow, none, that is, except for the 2 daughters of his Wazir. What will happen next? Will these 2 young women escape their fate? Or will one of them dare to change the course of the king's life and the future of his people? Stay with me as we unravel the next chapter of this tale, where courage and cunning might just outwit the cruelty of kings. The Wazir returned home that evening, his steps slow, his face heavy with worry. The king's cruel demand hung over him like a dark shadow, and he didn't know how to escape its weight. But waiting for him at home were his 2 daughters, Dunyazad and Shahrazad. Shahrazad, the elder, was no ordinary woman.
Oh no, dear listeners, Shahrazad was exceptional. She wasn't just wise, she was brilliant. A collector of tales, a lover of poetry, and a seeker of knowledge. They said she had studied the sciences, philosophy, and even the arts. She was clever, polite, and as quick with her words as she was with her wit.
That night, Shahrazad couldn't ignore her father's troubled face. She stepped forward, her voice calm but concerned.
Father, why do you look so burdened? What weighs so heavily on your heart?
The Wazir sat in silence for a moment, the weight of his daughter's words pressing down on him. He had told her everything, the king's cruelty, his unyielding demands, and the countless lives lost. But nothing prepared him for what she said next.
Shahrazad said firmly, her voice steady and sure. By God, Father, how long will this slaughter of innocent women go on? Do you not see the endless misery it causes?
Her father looked at her, his worry deepening. What are you saying, my daughter? He asked cautiously.
I have a plan, one that can save both the daughters of our people and your honor, Father. Marry me to King Shahryar. I will either survive or become a ransom for others. My sacrifice will end this cycle of destruction.
The Wazir was taken aback. He exclaimed, his voice rising with alarm. By God, child, how can you suggest such a thing? Do you not see the danger? The king will surely kill you, just as he has killed all the others.
But Shahrazad met his gaze, her resolve unshaken. She said softly, Father, I cannot sit idly by while this madness continues. If I die, let my death be for a noble cause, but I will not let this cruelty persist without trying to stop it.
The Wazir shook his head, his hands trembling. You lack the experience to understand what you're asking for. This is foolishness, Shahrazad. If you walk this path, you will only bring ruin upon yourself.
Father, my mind is made up. It must be done, no matter the cost. Her words hung in the air, as heavy as the silence that followed. The Wazir looked at his daughter, torn between his love for her and the faint hope that her plan might succeed.
The Wazir's anger flared as Shahrazad held her ground. His voice thundered, filled with both frustration and fear. By God, child, how can you speak such foolish words? Are you so scant of wit that you would throw your life away for this? Do you not see the peril? You lack the wisdom of the world, and those who act without thinking of the end only bring ruin upon themselves.
But Shahrazad didn't flinch. Her voice was steady, unwavering. Father, I must do this. Let the king take my life if he will. It will be a ransom for others. I cannot stand by and let this cruelty continue.
The Wazir, still furious, threw up his hands, his face reddening with frustration. "How will it profit you to die for this? You will only cast your life away for nothing."
"Even so, Father. It must be done, no matter what comes of it."
Her words were like steel, cutting through his protests. But the Wazir, overwhelmed with fury and fear, reproached her once more. "By all that is holy, I fear that this path you insist on walking will lead to the same fate that befell the bull and the donkey with the merchant."
At this, Shahrazad raised an eyebrow, curiosity flickering in her determined eyes. "And what was that fate, Father? What happened to them?"
The Wazir hesitated, his anger softening just a little. With a deep sigh, he began his tale. "Know, O my daughter, that there once was a wealthy merchant, a man blessed with great riches, many servants, and countless cattle and camels. He had a wife, children, and a vast estate where he farmed the land with great skill. But this man had a rare and dangerous gift. He could understand the speech of animals. God Most High had granted him the ability to hear and comprehend the tongues of beasts and birds, but under one strict condition. If he ever revealed this secret to anyone, he would surely die. So he kept this gift hidden out of both fear and wisdom. One day, as the merchant sat near his cattle house, his children playing around him, he overheard a curious conversation between two of his animals, a bull and a donkey, each tied in their own stall. Bull says, "How easy your life is. You lie in a clean stall, freshly swept and sprinkled with water. You're fed sifted barley, and your drink is pure spring water. Servants attend to you, and your only burden is the rare occasion when the master rides you to town. But look at me, poor, miserable me. They drag me out in the dead of night, place a heavy plow on my neck, and yoke me to the fields. From sunrise to sunset, I'm forced to till the land, breaking my body under the weight of endless toil. My sides are torn, my neck is raw, my legs ache, and my eyes are sore from crying. And after all that, they toss me into a filthy byre, feeding me beans and straw mixed with dirt and chaff. The stench is unbearable, and I spend the night lying in filth while you enjoy comfort and rest. While I suffer, you sleep peacefully. While I starve, you eat your fill. I am scorned, and you are loved. Tell me, is this fair?" The donkey turned to him and said, "Poor creature, you're the simplest of simpletons, and you lack any sense of foresight or cleverness. Truly, you know nothing of taking good advice." The donkey continued, "Have you never heard the wise saying, 'Who looks not ahead will find himself left behind, and who seeks no counsel will stumble through the dark'? Now, listen closely, old friend. You complain about your lot, but what you lack is a little cunning. Let me give you some advice that will make your life much easier, if only you're smart enough to follow it." The bull's ears perked up. His curiosity piqued, despite his frustration. The donkey's words seemed to carry a promise of relief, perhaps even freedom. The donkey continued, "You wake before dawn, dragging yourself into the fields and don't return until sunset. All day long, you endure nothing but hardship, beatings, harsh words, and endless labor. And yet, when they tie you to that stinking manger, you stomp the ground with pride, swing your horns, and bellow like you're the happiest creature alive. They think you're content. And when they throw you your food, you eat with such greed that they believe you're fine with your miserable life. When they take you to the fields and put that awful yoke on your neck, lie down and don't get up. Let them shout, let them beat you, but stay down. If they force you up, lie down again. Do it as many times as you need to. And when they bring you home at the end of the day, sniff at your food, but don't eat it. Act like the beans don't interest you at all. Turn your nose away and pretend you're satisfied with the dirty straw and chaff. Just keep this up for a day or two, maybe 3. Once they think you're sick, they'll leave you alone, and you'll finally get the rest you deserve. The bull, hearing the donkey's cunning advice, felt a newfound sense of hope. He turned to his companion with gratitude. Your words are wise. You've shown yourself to be a true friend, and you've made up for my shortcomings. May blessings come to you for your clever counsel. The next morning, the plowman came to fetch the bull for his usual work. He tied the heavy yoke around the bull's neck, just as he always did, and led him out to the fields. After a while, the bull began to shirk his duties, dragging his feet and refusing to pull the plow. The plowman, frustrated, began to shout and whip him, but the bull would not budge. Plowman shouted, "Get up, you lazy beast! What's gotten into you?" But the bull, determined to follow the donkey's advice, lay down on the ground, refusing to move. The plowman's anger boiled over. He lashed the bull with all his might, trying to force him to work. But the bull resisted, straining against the yoke until it finally snapped. With a mighty bellow, he broke free and bolted from the field. The bull ran as fast as his legs would carry him, but he didn't get far. The plowman caught up to him, leather strap in hand, and beat him mercilessly until the poor creature thought his life was at an end. Despite the beating he endured, the bull was determined to stick to the donkey's plan. When the plowman tried to make him work again, the bull refused. He stood still, unmoving, and when the man tried to force him, he simply dropped to the ground and stayed there until evening. Frustrated and exhausted, the plowman finally gave up. He led the bull back to the stable, shaking his head in confusion. Back in his stall, the bull continued his act. He ignored the manger completely, no stamping, no butting, no bellowing as he usually did. Instead, he moved as far from the food as he could and lay down silently in the corner. The man watched in disbelief as the bull lay down and closed his eyes, leaving the food untouched. All through the night, the bull fasted, staying completely still, just as the donkey had advised. The next morning, the peasant entered the barn, expecting the bull to be ready for work. But what he saw left him confused. The bull lay on his back, his legs stretched out, his belly bloated. The manger was untouched, beans and straw left exactly as they had been the night before. Plowman says, "By God, the poor beast is sick. That must be why he refused to plow yesterday." Concerned, the plowman hurried to the merchant and shared what he had seen. The merchant, however, knew exactly what was going on. He had overheard the entire conversation between the bull and the donkey, and he couldn't help but smile. Merchant says, "Ah, so that's how it is it? Well, if the bull is sick, then take that lazy donkey of yours and put the yoke on his neck. Let him do the bull's work in the fields today." The plowman followed the merchant's orders. He took the donkey to the fields and yoked him in place of the bull. All day long, the poor donkey struggled under the weight of the plow, trying to do work he was never built to handle. When the donkey faltered, weak and exhausted, the plowman had no mercy. The plowman whipped him without pity, leaving his ribs sore, his sides sunken, and his neck raw from the yoke. By the time evening came, the donkey could barely drag his legs home, his body aching from head to tail. Meanwhile, the bull had spent the entire day stretched out in his stall, feasting on his untouched fodder and enjoying his unexpected day of rest. Bull says, "Blessings upon you. Thanks to your wise advice. I've had the most peaceful day. I've eaten my fill and rested in comfort, all thanks to you." The donkey, however, didn't share the bull's joy. He stood there in silence, his body trembling with fatigue, his heart burning with regret. Donkey, muttering to himself, "This is what I get for meddling. I was happy and comfortable, but my foolishness has brought me nothing but pain and misery. I was in joy and gladness, naught save my officiousness brought me this sadness. I must think of a way to trick the bull and return him to his place, or I'll end up suffering this torment every day until I die." The Wazir finished his story, turning his gaze to Shahrazad. His voice grew stern, but there was an undercurrent of fear and desperation. "Do you see now, my daughter? This tale teaches that one who meddles without thinking often suffers the worst consequences. You are walking into danger, exposing yourself to needless peril. Sit still, be silent, and do not throw your life away. By God, I offer you the best advice, born of my love and concern for you."
"Oh, my father, my mind is made up. I must go to this king and marry him."
"Do not do this, my daughter."
"I will."
The Wazir's frustration boiled over. His voice rose as he warned her, "If you will not stay silent and heed my advice, then know this, I will do to you what the merchant did to his wife."
Shahrazad raised an eyebrow at her father's words. Her voice softened, but her curiosity was piqued. And what did the merchant do to his wife?
And so, dear listeners, we leave Shahrazad locked in a battle of wills with her father, the Wazir. Will his warnings and stories change her mind? Or will her resolve lead her to face the wrath of King Shahryar?
And what about the tale of the merchant's wife? What did she do to deserve such a warning, and what fate awaited her?
Let's not forget the donkey and the bull. Will the donkey outwit his way back to an easier life? Or will his cleverness trap him in endless toil?
What do you think will happen next? Will Shahrazad's wisdom save the kingdom's daughters? Or will her bravery lead her to ruin?
Join us next time on Tales Plus to find out what lies ahead for Shahrazad, her father, and the unfolding stories within stories.
And hey, don't forget to subscribe, share the podcast with your friends, and hit the notification button so you never miss a new episode.
Until next time, keep wondering, keep listening, and let these stories spark your imagination.